The millionaire didn't want to touch his bride. But after what she did, he couldn't have enough. Hi, my sweet family. I'm so happy you're here with me today. I have a very special story to share, and it might touch your heart. Thank you for being here. We're going on a fun little journey together. But before we begin, tell me, where are you watching from? I love reading your comments and seeing where my wonderful family lives all around the world. Now, are you ready? Let's get started. The cool autumn wind blew softly across Westbrook High's football field. Caleb Monroe saw Alara Hart for the very first time there. She was a junior in school, and she was giving out homemade cookies at a school fundraiser. Caleb was a senior. He liked her right away because she smiled brightly and talked to everyone with confidence. But it wasn't just because she was pretty. Alara's brown skin shined like honey in the sun. What really caught Caleb's eye was how excited she was to tell people that she made all the cookies herself. Their first talk happened when Caleb pretended he hadn't already bought 3 cookies. He came back to her table for a 4th one. "These cookies are amazing," he said, holding a chocolate chip cookie. "Did you really make them all by yourself?" Alara's eyes lit up. For the next 15 minutes, she talked happily about how she wanted to open a restaurant one day. Caleb told her about his big dream too. He wanted to change the way Monroe worked. Their dreams were different, but both wanted to make something special. Their love started in high school and grew stronger in college. Alara studied cooking at the local university. Caleb studied money and business there. They spent late nights together. Alara tried new recipes in their small dorm kitchen, while Caleb worked on his business ideas. They believed in each other and helped each other a lot. After college, Alara was brave and opened a small restaurant called Heart and Soul. It was pretty and people loved the new kinds of food she made. Caleb worked very hard to start a company called Gold Monroe. At first, it was just a tiny office with big dreams. They got married in the garden behind Alara's restaurant. It was a small but beautiful wedding. Alara cooked all the food for the party. Everyone said it was the best food they had ever tasted. At the start of their marriage, they faced some hard times, but they were happy. They lived in a small apartment. Alara would stay up late trying new recipes after the restaurant closed. Caleb worked hard to get more clients for his company. They were young and in love, and they always supported each other. Then one day things changed. Caleb came home very sad. He had lost a big investor, and Gold Monroe was having money problems. Alara found him sitting in the dark, holding his head in his hands. That night, while they sat on their old couch, Alara made a big decision. "Sell the restaurant," she said, even though she was crying. "Use the money for Gold Monroe." Caleb did not want to sell the restaurant. "No, Alara. That's your dream. I can't let you give it up." But Alara was sure. "Your dream is my dream too," she said, holding his hands. "I believe in you and in Gold Monroe. The restaurant is just a building, but what we can build together is much bigger." They sold Heart and Soul for $375,000. Every penny went into Gold Monroe. This was the first big money they had for the company. Caleb worked harder than ever. He wanted to show Alara that her sacrifice was not wasted. Slowly, things started to get better. Caleb's smart ideas and kind way with clients made more people notice him. After 1 year, Gold Monroe made 3 times the money they started with. After 2 years, they opened offices in 3 big cities. Alara stayed by Caleb's side. She went to dinners with clients and made friends with them by being kind and smart. At home, she cooked meals for Caleb's business meetings. She did much more than just give money. She was the heart of Gold Monroe. She helped the company feel warm and friendly. The 3rd year was very important. Gold Monroe got many big clients. Suddenly, they had billions of dollars to take care of. They moved to a big, fancy apartment. They bought fancy cars. They started living the life they had only dreamed about. Caleb's name was in many magazines. Gold Monroe became famous for being very good at helping people with money. The little office Caleb started in was now a big, tall building with hundreds of workers. Gold Monroe was now a company worth billions and had offices all over the world. But success came with problems. Gold Monroe needed more and more of Caleb's time. The late-night talks with Alara became late nights at the office. The nice dinners they had together were now big parties with many strangers. Their dreams started to go in different directions. Alara saw the change slowly. The long talks about their future became short talks about busy schedules. Caleb used to rush home, excited to tell her about his day. Now he was too tired to talk. She told herself it was only for a short time. When Gold Monroe got bigger, things would be better. She remembered the happy days when Caleb came back to buy cookies just to talk to her. Those days were like golden sunshine in her memory. But as Gold Monroe grew, the restaurant sale was only the first sacrifice. Their strong love started to break slowly, like the sun setting slowly until it was dark. Elara realized their marriage was breaking on a normal Tuesday night, 5 years after they got married. She spent many hours cooking Caleb's favorite dinner, herb-crusted lamb with roasted vegetables and chocolate souffle, his favorite dessert. The dining room was quiet with soft music and candlelight. It was their monthly date night, a special tradition she tried to keep. At 7:30 p.m., her phone buzzed with a message. Emergency board meeting. Don't wait up. Sorry, B. Elara sat alone, looking at the souffle that fell flat, a perfect picture of their marriage. She didn't cry. She packed the food away, blew out the candles, and opened a bottle of fancy wine Caleb had brought from France. As she drank, she realized she couldn't remember the last time they had eaten together. The next morning, a delivery came. It was a Cartier bracelet with a note. I'm sorry about last night. Love you. The bracelet was one of many gifts she got to say sorry. Diamonds for missed anniversaries. Designer bags for forgotten birthdays. Vacation tickets for trips he never came on. Caleb's life was full of meetings, flights, and problems to fix. Gold Monroe now handled billions of dollars. Caleb left early in the morning and came home late at night. His face was lit by his phone as he answered emails. Even when he was home, his mind was far away, thinking about work. Their talks that used to be full of dreams and laughter were now just short talks about busy days. The Quinn account needs attention, Caleb would say over breakfast. Can you host a dinner for them next week if I'm not there? Elara became the perfect business wife. She hosted dinners, went to charity parties, and kept their friendships. She did everything well. But inside, she felt like she was pretending. The woman who dreamed of running a restaurant was now just arranging food for business parties. Love and closeness were gone. Touching each other was rare. Quick kisses and hugs at parties. When Caleb came to bed, he was too tired for anything else. Months passed without real hugs or kisses. Their big bed felt like a big ocean between them. They talked about having children, but it made Elara sad. Every time she asked, Caleb said, "Not now, I have to finish this deal," or "after we grow in Asia." The goal kept moving farther. Elara's dream to be a mother faded a little more every year. One night she said softly, "Just think about it, a little girl with your smile or a boy with your brain." Caleb barely looked up. "We will, Sam. Just not now. The company needs me. You understand, right?" She did understand. Gold Monroe was his child now, and he gave all his care and love to it. She understood she had become just a pretty decoration in his story, like the fancy art in their apartment or the cars in their garage. During these lonely nights, Elara started to fight back quietly. She sold a diamond bracelet here, a fancy watch there. These things were symbols of their broken marriage, but she turned them into something better. She started buying real estate using her mother's name, so no one would know. Her first buy was a small apartment building in a neighborhood that was getting better. She was scared when she signed the papers, but also excited. She felt free again, like when she ran her restaurant. The building needed fixing, but she loved watching the changes. With more gifts from Caleb, she bought more buildings, a small office, houses in the suburbs, and little stores. Elara was good at real estate, maybe because she learned from Caleb. She worked with a few trusted helpers, but kept her secret safe. While Caleb built his big company for everyone to see, Elara was quietly building her own future, ready for whatever might come next. Elara felt more and more sure that she needed to be separate from Caleb. Every new house or property she bought was another step toward being free. She wanted a life with choices, because her life felt like it had no choices at all. One night, after Caleb canceled their date again, Elara sat in her big closet. She looked at all the fancy clothes she wore to parties, where she had smiled and talked to Caleb's clients. She saw the jewelry Caleb gave her to make up for not being around. She started to sort everything. Some things she would sell, some she would keep, and some she would give away. In the back of a drawer, she found their wedding album. The pictures showed a young couple who looked like strangers now. They had looked so happy and full of dreams. Elara touched Caleb's smiling face in the photo and remembered how he had looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. She wondered, when did that change? When did money become more important than love? The next morning, Elara called her lawyer to start making divorce papers. She didn't tell Caleb because he was busy in Singapore with a big work deal. Instead, she kept pretending to be the perfect wife, a smart CEO's wife, a good hostess, and someone who understood her husband. But now she had a plan. If nothing got better by the end of the year, she would leave. She should have felt sad about this, but instead she felt calm. Her secret investments had grown enough to make sure she could take care of herself. She had made a safety net to catch her if her life fell apart. But sometimes, she saw small signs that Caleb was still the man she loved. Sometimes he smiled at her like when they were young. Sometimes he gave her a gentle kiss in the morning. Sometimes they talked about their past with real feelings. These small moments kept a little hope alive, but not enough to save their marriage. Elara knew that love, like her old restaurant, sometimes needed sacrifice. But this time, she had to sacrifice for herself, not for Caleb. When fall came, and their 8th wedding anniversary was near, Elara stood by the big windows in their penthouse. She looked at the city they had conquered together. Somewhere in those shiny lights was the school where they met, the university where they fell in love, and the small restaurant she gave up for Caleb's dreams. Somewhere out there were the houses she bought in secret, a quiet empire she built from broken promises. She checked her phone. Another fancy party was tonight, another night pretending to be the perfect wife. Just then Caleb texted, "Running late, start without me." She texted back, "Okay." Then her other phone, the one for her real estate business, buzzed with good news about another house she had bought. Her 2 lives felt normal now. The public life as Mrs. Caleb Monroe, and the private life of a woman getting ready to be free. As she got dressed, she wondered if Caleb ever noticed the jewelry missing from their joint accounts. Did he ever wonder why she accepted his gifts so easily? But Caleb was busy with work. He didn't see the changes in their life. He didn't notice Elara stopped cooking his favorite food. He didn't notice she stopped planning surprise dates or asking about having kids. He didn't notice her smile didn't reach her eyes anymore. He didn't notice her laughter sounded empty, or how their touches became quick and cold. The divorce papers sat in her private safe, waiting for the right time. Sometimes at night, she took them out and read them. Each word reminded her how far they had come from the young lovers who dreamed together. The papers were an ending and a new beginning. The end of their love story, and the start of a new chapter she never thought she would have. As she put on her makeup for another night of pretending, Elara saw herself in the mirror. She looked like what Caleb wanted, successful, polished, and perfect. But inside, she was a woman he didn't know anymore. A woman who turned his neglect into strength, his absence into freedom, and his gifts into real investments. The strange thing was, she never stopped loving him. Even now, as she got ready to leave, she loved the man she married. The man who had once visited her cookie stand 4 times in one day. The man who had built something from nothing. The young husband who looked at her like she was everything. But that man was gone. He was replaced by someone who saw her as a thing to show off, not a partner or a friend. What Elara didn't know was that their story wasn't over. The 2 lives she lived, the perfect wife and the secret businesswoman, were about to crash together in ways neither of them expected. One Monday morning in September, Caleb was in his office on the 50th floor. He was looking at reports when his phone started buzzing nonstop. A financial blog had published a story saying that Gold Bank's asset management had done bad things with money. The story was not true, but in money business, what people think matters a lot. Within hours, the story spread fast on TV and news websites. Gold Bank's stock started to fall slowly, then faster and faster. Caleb watched in horror as millions of dollars disappeared before his eyes. By the time the market closed, the company's stock had dropped 15%. At a meeting that evening, Caleb told the board, "It's just a problem we can fix. We will get through this." He sounded confident like always, but his hands were shaking as he took off his tie. That night, Caleb came home early. Elara was surprised to see him so soon. He stood in the kitchen, staring at his phone. His shoulders were tense, and he looked worried. Even though Elara was sad about their marriage, her heart hurt seeing him like this. "Do you want to talk?" she asked gently, putting her hand on his arm. He looked at her, and for a moment, she saw the young man she loved. "It's really bad, Sam," he whispered. "Really bad." The next weeks were full of meetings, press talks, and trying hard to fix the problems. Caleb worked all day and night, trying to save the company. He went on TV, talked to big investors, and said many things defending the Gold Bank. But the damage was done. Because of the story, people looked closely at Gold Bank's money moves. There was no cheating, but some of the investments were risky. Big clients got scared and took their money out. The stock price kept falling. Elara watched as their empire started to fall apart. The divorce papers stayed in the safe. How could she leave now, when everything was breaking down? The worst came in late October. One of Gold Bank's big investments in another country failed when that country's money lost value. The loss was huge. Billions of dollars gone overnight. The stock, already low, fell even more. Caleb stood in his office, watching workers pack up their things. Gold Bank, the company he started from nothing, the dream Alara gave up her restaurant for, was going bankrupt. The tall building that once showed their success would soon belong to the people they owed money to. Their money was tied to the company. The penthouse, the cars, the vacation homes, they all had to be sold to pay debts. Credit cards were canceled, bank accounts frozen. Their fancy life was gone in a flash. One evening, sitting in their empty penthouse, Caleb finally cried. "I'm sorry, Sam," he said, his head in his hands. "I've lost everything. Everything you believed in, everything you put into this." Alara held him while he cried. She remembered the night years ago when she offered to sell her restaurant to help Caleb's dream. The irony was clear. She had planned to leave him when things were good, but now, when things were bad, she couldn't. They decided to move back to their hometown. The Monroe had taken almost everything. But one thing was still theirs, the small house they kept as a rental. It was in Alara's name from before Gold Bank's success. It wasn't much, not like their penthouse, but it was something. The drive back was quiet. Their stuff was in a rented moving truck. They passed the school where they met, the university where they fell in love, and the empty lot where their restaurant once stood. It felt like going back to the start. Their old house was just like before. Small but clean. The furniture old, the kitchen simple, the rooms small compared to their city home. But walking through it brought back memories of when they were newly married. Simple dinners at a tiny table, lazy Sunday mornings in bed, dreams shared in the little backyard. That first night back, they slept on a mattress on the floor. Their bedroom stuff was still being moved. The quiet of the neighborhood was so loud compared to the city noise they were used to. Caleb lay awake in bed. He looked at the ceiling and thought a lot. He was sad and worried about losing. "Do you remember our first night in this house?" Alara asked quietly in the dark. Caleb smiled a little. "Yes," he said. "We didn't have any furniture except a small card table and 2 folding chairs. We ate takeout food sitting on the floor." Alara smiled too. "And we were so happy," she said. "We were just happy to be together and start our life." Their words were quiet and soft. When did they stop being happy like that? When did having lots of money become more important than being together? The next morning, Caleb found an old suit in the back of the closet. It was a suit he wore a long time ago when he first started his company, Gold Monroe. It didn't fit right anymore. Some parts were tight and some parts were loose. But it was all he had left. He looked in the bathroom mirror and fixed his old tie. He got ready to face his new life. "I'm going to register for Uber," he said at breakfast. "We need money, and this is something I can do right away." Alara watched him drink her coffee. He looked different in the old suit, more real, more like the man she married. The fancy suits and expensive watches had made a wall between them. Now, without all those things, she could see him clearly again. That evening, when Caleb came home after setting up his Uber account, he smelled dinner. Alara was cooking her special roast chicken. She hadn't made it in many years. Caleb stood in the doorway and smelled the chicken. It took him back to the old days when coming home to her cooking was the best part of his day. Caleb's fall from being rich was big. Before, the news talked about how smart he was with money. Now they talked about how he failed. People he worked with said mean things. Their rich friends stopped calling. But something surprising was happening. Without the stress of running a billion-dollar company, without fancy parties or big dinners, Caleb and Alara were finding each other again. Their old house, which once felt like a sign of losing, was now their safe place. Here, away from the spotlight, and without pretending, they saw each other as they really were. Not a rich CEO and his perfect wife, but Caleb and Alara, the 2 kids who once dreamed of a happy life together. What they did not know was that losing everything would help them find something better: love, understanding, and real connection. They were starting a new life without knowing it, one that would change what they thought about success and happiness. The next morning, soft sunlight came through the old curtains of their house. Alara woke up because she smelled something good. She was confused for a moment. It had been a long time since she smelled breakfast cooking in the morning. She put on her robe and walked quietly down the hallway. When she looked in the kitchen, she stopped. Caleb was at the old stove, flipping pancakes in the heavy iron pan they had since college. He wore an old t-shirt and sweatpants. This was very different from the fancy suits he used to wear. He was humming softly, something he used to do when they were young. Did you make the pancakes? Elara asked, surprised. Caleb smiled a shy smile, not the confident smile he showed at big company parties. This is softer, quieter, like the boy who used to come back to your cookie booth a long time ago, he said. I found your old recipe book in the cupboard, he said, pointing to the old notebook on the counter. Remember how we used to make breakfast together on Sundays? Elara felt her throat get tight. She remembered those lazy Sunday mornings when they danced around the kitchen, stealing kisses while making pancakes and coffee. When did they stop doing that? The pancakes were not perfect. Some were a little burnt, and some were not cooked all the way. But as they sat at their small kitchen table eating, Elara realized this was the first real breakfast they had shared in years. Even though the food was not perfect, and Caleb looked sad about their life now, he made jokes. He asked about her day, and really listened to her answers. In the next few days, Elara watched Caleb sell or pawn the few nice things he still had. He sold his Rolex watch, his nice suits, and his rare bottles of wine. Each time he sold something, he looked lighter, like he was letting go of the old Caleb. I found a used car, he said one night after looking for a while. It's not fancy, but it works well. It's good for driving for Uber. He sounded tired but ready. Elara's heart felt soft. That night, she cooked a special dinner, not just reheated food or takeout. She made Caleb's favorite dish from when they were first married, her special herb-crusted chicken with roasted vegetables. The kitchen smelled warm and nice, and memories came back to her. When Caleb came home from looking at cars, he stopped at the door and took a deep breath. That smells amazing, he said, his voice full of feeling. Just like I used to make at the restaurant, Elara said softly. They ate together at their old kitchen table, with the light shining warm above them. Caleb enjoyed every bite and closed his eyes sometimes, like he wanted to remember the taste. Why didn't you ever open another restaurant? He asked suddenly. When we had the money, he added. Elara was surprised. Caleb hadn't talked about her cooking dreams in a long time. You were busy with Gold Monroe, she said gently. And I was busy being Caleb Monroe's wife. They were quiet for a moment, but they understood each other. Caleb put down his fork and took her hand. I'm going to fix this, Sam, he said quietly. Once I start earning money with Uber, I'll save up and we'll open your restaurant. Even if it's small, like a food truck at first. His words made Elara cry. This was the Caleb she loved, the man who cared about her dreams as much as his own. The next day, Caleb started driving for Uber. He left early wearing an old casual shirt, looking nervous but ready. When he came home that night, he was tired but had some money in his pocket. Elara had dinner ready. They made a new routine, different from their old life but better in many ways. Caleb told her stories about his passengers while they ate. He talked about college students he drove, which reminded him of their university days. He told her about an old couple he helped carry groceries and tourists who shared restaurant tips. One night, Elara was washing dishes when Caleb hugged her from behind. The hug was soft and gentle. She almost dropped the plate. His chin rested on her shoulder, and she felt his warm breath. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice rough. Sorry for what our marriage became. Sorry for taking you for granted and forgetting what really matters. Elara turned to face him in the soft kitchen light. She saw the sadness and truth in his eyes. Without his fancy clothes and power, they were just Caleb and Elara again. He kissed her, soft and sweet like he used to when they were young and in love. It was not a quick, distracted kiss like before. It was real, full of hope. That night, they made love for the first time in many months, or maybe years. The sadness and distance were gone. Instead, there was tenderness and a new feeling of closeness that left them both happy and surprised. In the weeks that followed, their love grew stronger in ways they didn't expect. They started going on real dates again. Not fancy dinners or clubs, but simple things like the local movie theater, where they shared popcorn and held hands in the dark. They took walks in the evening, talking about everything and nothing. Caleb pointed out houses he saw while driving, and Elara shared recipes she wanted to try. Their hugs and kisses became more often and more special. They found joy in little things, brushing hands while washing dishes, quick kisses in the hallway, falling asleep wrapped in each other's arms. Then one morning, Elara found out she was pregnant. She stood in the small bathroom, staring at the positive test, her heart beating fast. For years, Caleb had said no to having children, always saying there was a big deal or work to do first. Now their lives had changed so much. How would he feel? She found him in the kitchen getting ready for his day driving. She took a deep breath and put the test on the counter. Caleb, I'm pregnant. He looked at the test for a long time. Alara felt scared, thinking he might not be happy. But when he looked up, his eyes were full of tears. "We're having a baby," he whispered. The wonder in his voice made Alara's eyes fill with tears too. He pulled her into a tight hug. "Thank you," he said softly. "Thank you for not giving up on us." That night, they sat on their small porch. Caleb's hand rested protectively on Alara's still flat stomach. They talked about the future, not about money or business, but about baby things like nursery colors, names, first steps, and bedtime stories. "I know this isn't the life you are used to," Alara said softly, looking around their small home. Caleb looked at her seriously. "No," he said. "It's better. I lost an empire, but I found my way back to you, back to us. That is worth more than all the money in the world." As they sat in the evening light, Alara felt a secret weight in her heart about the houses and money she had. Soon, she would need to tell Caleb everything. But for now, she enjoyed this moment, their new life, their new love. The man beside her was not the powerful CEO anymore, but he was truly Caleb again. In losing everything, he found himself. And in finding himself, he found his way back to her. Their love story was not ending in sadness like others might think. It was just beginning again, stronger and truer than before. The autumn morning started like any other in their new life. Caleb kissed Alara goodbye. His hand stayed gently on her belly, which was a little bigger because she was having a baby. Then he went out to drive his Uber car. Alara was 3 months pregnant and looked very happy. Their small house felt warm and cozy. It wasn't because they had a lot of money, but because they had love. During the day, Caleb drove many people. Most were workers going to their jobs, students hurrying to school, and tourists exploring the city. Around noon, Caleb picked up a man from the business part of the city. When Caleb looked in his mirror, he saw someone he knew. It was Jasper Quinn. Caleb's heart beat faster because he remembered Jasper from the days when Caleb worked at Goldman Rowe's company. Jasper smiled and said, "Is that really you, Caleb?" Caleb smiled back but felt nervous. He thought the talk might be strange or hard. But Jasper was happy to see him. He said, "I have been trying to find you. I want to thank you and Alara." Caleb didn't understand. "Thank us for what?" he asked. Jasper said, "For the apartment you let me live in when my company had money problems. You didn't ask for rent. It saved me. I'm doing well now, but I will never forget your kindness." Caleb was shocked. "What apartment?" he asked. Jasper explained that he had lived in a fancy apartment for free, and he thought it belonged to Caleb and Alara. After dropping Jasper off, Caleb thought a lot. At lunch, he used the internet to look up the apartment. He found out it was part of a big group of buildings owned by Alara's mother, Vera Langston. Caleb was confused. How long had Alara been buying buildings? How many did she own? Why hadn't she told him? When Caleb got home that evening, the sun was going down. He found Alara in their garden taking care of the small herbs she planted. She looked peaceful and happy. Caleb's heart felt heavy. He told her, "We need to talk, Sam." They sat at their kitchen table. Caleb said, "I picked up Jasper Quinn today. He told me about the apartment. He was thankful for our help." Alara's face was calm, but her hands held tight on the table. Caleb said, "But I didn't know anything about it, did I?" Alara was quiet for a moment and then said, "No, you didn't." Then Alara told Caleb a secret she had kept for years. She said she had sold the expensive gifts Caleb gave her during their hard times. She used that money to buy buildings, but she put them in her mother's name. She said, "I needed something of my own, something not tied to Goldman Rowe or our marriage, because I wasn't sure if either would last." Alara stood up and went to their bedroom. When she came back, she had a big envelope. "These are divorce papers," she said. "I had them ready 6 months before Goldman Rowe fell apart." Caleb looked at the envelope and felt like the ground disappeared under him. "You were going to leave me?" he asked. Alara said, "I was. I planned everything. The buildings would give me money to live on. I was going to tell you after the Miller merger. But then, everything changed. I couldn't leave you when you had nothing." Caleb's voice was soft. "Do you still want to leave?" Alara took his hands and said, "No. These last few months, watching you drive Uber and become the man I fell in love with again, I love you all over." Caleb was surprised. "But you're still rich," he said. "You could have saved Goldman Rowe." Alara shook her head. "No, because saving Goldman Rowe would have meant losing you again. I want the real you, not success." Caleb stood up and walked around the kitchen. He was thinking about how he had been worried about money while driving Uber. Alara said, "You were afraid if we had money again, you'd go back to being the man who missed dinners and forgot how to love me." Her words hit Caleb hard. He stopped walking and looked at her. She was pregnant, sitting in their small kitchen, strong and calm. I understand now, Caleb said. I understand why you kept it secret. And you were right to worry. Money and success changed me. It changed us. He knelt beside her chair and took her hands. But I'm not that man anymore, he said. These months have shown me what matters. You, our baby, and the life we are making. I don't want to be who I was before. Tears ran down Alara's face. I want to be your husband, Caleb said. I want to be a good dad to our baby. I want to help you open the restaurant you dreamed of. Not a fancy one, but a place that feels like home, like you're cooking. He put his hand on her belly. I want to keep driving Uber sometimes because it keeps me humble. It reminds me to be real. Alara laughed, a little watery but happy. You want to drive Uber when we could live on your building's money? Maybe not all the time, Caleb said with a smile. But yes, because every time I drive, I remember what I almost lost, love. They spent the rest of the night talking about their future. They decided to use some of Alara's money from the buildings to open a new restaurant. It would be small and cozy, where Alara could cook food she loved and families could come together. A place where their child could grow up learning the value of hard work and love. 3 months later, Heart and Soul Bistro opened. It was smaller than Alara's first restaurant, but filled with love. Caleb worked at the restaurant and kept driving Uber sometimes. He said both kept him humble. They stayed in their small house and used their money quietly to help others, just like they helped Jasper. 2 months after the restaurant opened, Alara went into labor. They were surprised to learn they were having twins, 2 boys who looked just like both of them. On a bright spring morning, the boys were born. They named them Benjamin and Daniel. Watching Caleb hold their babies, Alara knew they made the right choice starting over. 5 years later, their life was different from what they thought success would be. The twins ran through the restaurant after school, helping their mother in the kitchen and making customers smile with their matching grins. Caleb still drove Uber a few days a week, telling stories from his rides at dinner. Their money, managed quietly through Alara's buildings, helped others while they kept their simple life. One evening, as they closed the restaurant, Caleb pulled Alara close and danced with her in the empty dining room. Do you miss it? She asked, the penthouse, the fancy cars, being a CEO. Caleb looked around their restaurant, thinking of their sleeping boys at home and the life they built. Not for a second, he said, holding her close. I lost an empire, but found a kingdom. Everything I need is here. Alara rested her head on his shoulder. She remembered the lonely nights in their big penthouse, the canceled dates and broken promises. This life they built, messy and imperfect but full of love, was worth more than all the money they had before. Outside, the sun set over their small town, shining gold through the restaurant windows. In her husband's arms, Alara smiled. Sometimes the biggest changes don't come from climbing higher, but from falling together and finding your way back to love. If this story touched your heart, please press that like button. It helps more people find these stories. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you never miss a new story. Most importantly, share your thoughts in the comments. I love you all. Take care of your hearts.